The Ford Tractor Engine Assembly. This video is brought to you by Just 8N's Ford Tractor Parts and Restoration Service. This procedure details the assembly of the Ford engine found on tractors built from 1939 to 1950 with serial numbers 263, 843, and lower. This engine variant is distinguished by having the distributor mounted on the front of the engine block and is known as the front mount engine. This procedure assumes the engine block is completely assembled as detailed in a separate video. Assemble the flywheel by press fitting the ring gear on the flywheel. Press in the pilot bearing and the flywheel assembly is complete. Align the flywheel to the crankshaft dowel pins and mount the flywheel to the crankshaft. Install the dowel and bolt retainer with 4 drilled head bolts and then lock wire the bolts together as shown. Mount the fiber clutch disc to the flywheel by inserting the clutch alignment tool into the pilot bearing. With the fiber disc held in place, carefully mount the clutch pressure plate and cover assembly with 6 bolt and lock washer assemblies. Then remove the installation tool. Install the oil filler tube and the breather cap assembly, followed by the oil dipstick. Screw in the coolant drain petcock in the side of the block. Install the oil filter tube fitting in the oil port, facing as shown. Screw the valve cover mounting studs into the block, then place the valve cover gaskets on the block followed by the valve covers. Fasten the covers with a nut and lock washer. Mount the manifold next. Screw in 4 studs in the block, followed by the gaskets and the manifold. Fasten with 4 brass nuts and lock washers. Place a gasket on the governor and mount the governor with 2 bolts. On the other side of the block, attach the oil filter with 2 bolts and lock washers. Connect the oil filter to oil port tubing and then the oil filter to governor tubing. Next, mount the starter motor to the block with 2 long screws and lock washers. Mount the carburetor assembly to the manifold with 2 nut and lock washer sets. Attach the carburetor to governor control rod to the fittings as shown. Install 3 water pump mounting studs in the block, then place the water pump gasket and cover over the studs. Assemble the fan to the water pump with 4 bolts and lock washers. Then attach the water pump to the block with 3 nuts on the studs and a bolt in the top mounting hole. Place a bolt through the spark plug wire bracket and into the front cover in the orientation as shown. Attach the generator adjusting arm to the bolt and secure with a nut and lock washer. Mount the generator to the boss on the front cover with a bolt, nut, and lock washer. Fasten the other end of the adjusting arm to the generator bracket with a bolt, flat washer, lock washer, and nut as shown. Place a gasket on the distributor and insert the distributor and coil assembly into the front cover. Fasten the distributor with 2 bolts and lock washers. Install 4 spark plugs in the head. Mount the spark plug wires and conduit assembly to the cylinder head using 2 of the installed head bolts as shown. Place the fan belt over the pulleys, and the engine is now completely assembled. To see more videos from Just 8 Ends, remember to like and subscribe.